Welcome to the episode video 6. This is Jimmy Bach with my producer Chandler Holmes, and this is History with Jimmy at the FLT Museum in Shikshini, PA. Today you are starting out in the dark. There is nothing wrong with your computer or however you're watching this video, because today we are talking about miners and the mining industry, which started in the 1850s here in this area and was predominantly the most important employment opportunities in this area. And we are going to talk about today about a mining accident that happened in Mocanaqua at the West End Coal Company in 1931. And I wanted you to get an idea of what these miners who were trapped for 5.5 days. They were trapped in the mines for 5.5 days, and they had very little light. And I will show you some of the things that were used to try to get these miners out. And some of it is a little graphic, so I'm warning you ahead of time that some of the things that I'm about to tell you are a little bit graphic. But it is the true part of the story, and it's important that you understand. And the light you are seeing here today is about the light that they had to use as they were trapped in the mines. Okay. This is the story of 6 men, and doubted that they were able to get them out as rock was encountered numerous times. This is a story that we have here at the building, and it's about these men that are trapped. And the victims are John Tomashunas, 40 years old, wife and 7 children. John Molatoris, 35, Mocanaqua, wife and 4 children. Paul Novak, Mocanaqua, wife and 5 children. Henry Slugarski, Mocanaqua, unmarried. Joseph Mazzoni, Mocanaqua, unmarried. John Tagmanini, Lee Street, Mocanaqua, suffered severe burns. Gabriel Swark, Main Street, Mocanaqua, suffered severe burns. And Joseph Tynas. It does not give us any indication of where he lived, but I assume it's in Mocanaqua. And as part of this story, you'll see it says, little hope held for the recovery of men alive as 5th day passes and rescuers are battling rock. Now, one of the things that I want to show you on this episode is, here's a drill that you can see here. And this was one of the pieces of equipment that they had to drill through rock in order to get it. And it got put up against their shoulder, and they had there. You need a lot of strength. This is very heavy. But they didn't have a lot of electrical equipment they would have today. So that is one piece of equipment. Another piece is a pick. Now this one obviously does not have the handle through it, but this came from the mines that was used to help rescue these men. The other thing that the men would have would be a helmet like that with a carbide light, and that carbide light was actually used by most of the miners, and what it was, you would put carbide in it and add water to it, and it would create a spark, and this would be the light. And the light that I showed you initially, that was the light that would actually come out of that. But one of the most important things that was used was this particular light right here. Initially, miners, when they went into the mine, and because of the worry about gas, that they would have a canary cage, and a canary would be in there. And if that canary started to make sounds and eventually die, the men knew to get out of the mines because gas was being detected, and the canaries were used to detect that gas. Well, this lamp right here, which was given to us by Pat Gallagher, and Pat Gallagher and his brother both served in the military. They have banners that are hanging outside on the pole, and Pat gave us this particular lamp when we were downstairs. He didn't tell us anything about this particular lamp until he came back a second time when we were up here. And he was reading this particular story about these men. And as he was doing that, he said, "Where's the lamp that I gave you?" And we have it set up high because it's very rare. It's made in Wilkes-Barre, and this is what they used to detect the gas. And it had a special wick in there, and this is what they used to help detect gas. And when Pat was sitting here, he said, "Jimmy," he said, "there's something that I forgot to tell you about the lamp that I gave you." And I said, "What?" He said, "My dad used this to try to help rescue these men to get out of the mine." Well, I got goosebumps as he was telling me this story, because we had something now that pertained to using to help rescue these men. And I'm going to read to you some of the things that came from the newspaper account of this. But before we get into that, this was the third mine disaster in a half a century there. And the first one was in August 11th, 1885. It was the #1 drift. 10 men were suffocated when a fan failed and the white damp filled the workings where they were located. Meaning they have a fan that was put at the very top of the mines to put fresh air in there. And what happened with that particular accident was the gentleman that was in charge of it shut the fan off to fix it and forgot to turn it back on. And there would have been more than 10 men had died had the fire boss not saw rats running out of the mine. And when he saw that, he yelled to these men, and many of them were able to get out, but 10 of them died. The man that was in charge of the fan forgot to turn it back on, and that's what happened. And when they did the investigation, they found out that's exactly what happened, and he was only fined $50 and kept his job, but yet these men died. The second one happened on May 31st, 1892. 4 men were killed or fatally injured. 7 other miners were badly burned in a gas explosion in Sandrift. Sandrift, apparently in Mocanaqua, was one of the major mining areas that they went. And some of the places, they went back as far as a mile deep, getting coal out of the mines and stuff. So the 2 men that apparently were closer to the entrance of the mine that got out was, let's see, badly burned and injured. Tangamani and Squark stumbled out of the mine ahead of the other miners who were working in the slope and who left their post there when they heard the explosion. There was an explosion there because of the gas. When they encountered the 2 men, they saw the explosion had caught the 6 men further down in the mine, and a hastily organized party went down the slope, and they saw the rock and the coal blocking the drift. The men and crews were called out from previous mining operations here, and they worked day and night trying to rescue these men, as they knew it could have been one of them that this could have happened to them. Mocanaqua plunged into a deep gloom after the first shock of disaster passed. And like I said, different groups of men came there and worked shifts trying to get through this rock. This was probably one of the things that at the very end helped close some of the Mocanaqua mine operations off. The West End officials had little or no definition as to offer the cause of the disaster, but the most plausible explanation being a spark from a mine motor ignited gas causing an explosion that swept hundreds of feet through the mines. This terrible explosion was heard by many in Mocanaqua, even though it took place hundreds of feet and caused rocks to fall, completely blocking the tunnel. The explanation that the gas came from the Sandrift workings is the most plausible explanation, since gas is known to exist there in large quantities, which every day men risk their lives going into the mines, not knowing if at the end of the day that they were going to come home to their families. And at this time, as I said, there were 7, 4, 5 children that lost their fathers that day. And that meant that the mothers then were in charge of raising the family and not having income because the father was the main income for that. Now, fortunately, at the very end, 2 men actually did get out at the end of 6 days. One of them was John Thomashunas, and his wife was there, and she said that it was like seeing him come back from the dead. The other one was Joseph Mazzoni, who I was told was his first day in the mines, and obviously he never went back after that, and neither would I. One of the other people that was involved was John Molatoris, and I had mentioned this and when I was at a mechanic shop in Mocanaqua, and a gentleman that was there said, "My grandfather died in the mines," and I said, "What date?" And he said, 1931, he thought. And I said, "What was his name?" He said, "It was John Molatoris." And I said, well, we have his story, and he was not aware of it. He said, "But my grandmother told me that when they drug him out of the mines, they threw him down the ground and they put a tag on him and said that he owed the mining companies money." This is how things were back then. The mining companies and the mining coal barons controlled everything. And they didn't want people to know that there were accidents, and they would always blame it on the miners so that they would not be liable for this. And one of the things that miners died from eventually was black lung disease. And I can specifically remember both my grandfather and Cheryl's grandfather had the black lung disease. I remember one summer when we were going up to Cheryl's grandparents for a cookout, and all of us were in the backyard except her grandfather, and he had a hard time getting outside, and I still can see to this day he was standing at the sink where the window was as he was trying to make his way out to join the rest of us in the backyard. And you could see it was a struggle for him to do that. And that happened to many of the miners that worked in there. And the next one that I remember was specifically was my grandfather. My grandfather actually, I remember coming out of the bathroom one time as I was staying there overnight, and I could see that his one leg was considerably smaller than the other one. And when I asked my father about that, he said that he had polio when he was young. So he was somebody that worked to raise a family. He struggled. He never complained. I never heard him complain about anything. He bought me my first hunting rifle. He helped me learn how to train dogs, rabbit dogs and stuff. And so he was very informative about different things in life, but I never heard him complain. And at the very end, I remember him and I going for a ride, and he was lucky if he could walk 10 feet without bending over because he couldn't breathe. And that's what happened to a lot of these miners. And that was unfortunate, and they were never compensated fully because many of them died before this law came out that compensated miners that got this black lung disease. So in closing, I would like to invite you to come and share this video because there are more stories that we are going to be talking about mining, because mining was so prevalent in this area, both in Mocanaqua and Shikshini. So in closing, I would like to say thank you for visiting episode 6. I hope you will pass it on. This is Jimmy Bach, along with my producer Chandler Holmes, signing off here at the FLT Museum in Shikshini. Thank you again for watching.